I have no idea what's going on with this. Live stream offline. Meeting is now live streaming, but it's not. Oh dear. Okay. Right, hold on a sec. Let's get this sorted. Right. Come back in. Share. Right. Want to share that. Okay. The live thing's not right, is it? I want to keep it open, yes. Oh, what is going on here? Okay, that will be it, won't it? Right, so a couple of minutes then we'll start, and it's supposed to be sharing live on YouTube. I don't think it is actually. I think that's not working at all, which is annoying. Right, appears to be working now. Yay, okay, cool. Brilliant, so live stream's actually working. That's good. I need to get back to my slides. That's there. All right, couple of minutes and we will start. So yeah, grab some note paper, grab a pen. Plenty to share with you in this. As I say, we will start on the dot, couple of minutes, 3 minutes, and we'll get started. I guess when you're watching this later on the live stream, and obviously you can skip forward these first few sort of 10 minutes of sorting out all the technical bits. But this should now work. We should be good. So as I say, see you in what, 2 minutes, and we'll kick off 10 o'clock on the dot. All right. All right, so 10 o'clock. So let's get beginning. Let's get starting. I'm Paul Elliott. I will tell you more about me as we progress into this web class, into this presentation. But let's just kick it off. Let's just get into it. All right, so this is called How to Be Oversubscribed. So you earn more, work less, and enjoy your freedom. Ultimately, what I want to show you here is really how to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business to create a model which actually gives you what I'm describing here. So be oversubscribed, work the hours you ultimately want to work, enjoy your freedom, and of course, make the money you want to make. So if you want to gain more coaching or more consulting clients more easily, if you want to be so in demand that you can choose who you work with and when, if you want to be a respected authority or an expert, if you like, in your niche, and if you want to have more time off, less stress, more income, then this is absolutely for you. So I've gone through a number of iterations with my business over the last few years in terms of really sort of nailing what I wanted from it and who exactly I wanted to work with. So I think some of you know my background, spent most of my career as a seminar speaker, so traveling the world, sharing ideas with people. A lot of fun, without a doubt, a lot of fun, but also a lot of time on the road. And you get to a point where it's like, hey, is that really what I want to be doing? And so, yes, I like events. Yes, I want to still run 1 or 2 events a year. I don't want to be on the road. I don't want to be on a plane all the time, but I did want to find a way to make my business work differently and be more scalable without me. Does that make sense? So that's what this is. So the main goal then of this webinar is to provide the easiest way for anyone to be oversubscribed in their business. I see too many people chasing clients, hunting clients. It is the biggest problem, without doubt, on the internet for coaching, consulting, any kind of service business, fitness professionals, in terms of wanting to gain more clients. That's the whole thing. It's like, how do I get more clients? How do I get more clients? People are great at what they do. You're probably very good at your level of expertise, whether you're a financial advisor, whether you're some sort of mindset coach, whatever it is you do, I'm sure you're great. But it's getting that consistency and really thinking differently. So provide the easiest way for anyone to be oversubscribing their business with clients who appreciate them, which has an immediate impact on their level of fun, their level of fulfillment, and their bottom line income. So that's what this is about. And this is what it's not about. It's not about spending every waking hour on social media. How much of an explosion have we seen there? And I like LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn and YouTube are 2 main platforms. And the amount of, I can't say it's rubbish necessarily, but the amount of ideas propagated or myths propagated on LinkedIn in terms of, spending every waking hour on social media, posting God knows how many times a day, connecting with so many people, liking this, liking that, commenting here, commenting there. It's like, really? If I had to do that, why would I be in business? That's not fun to me. So this is not about spending every waking hour on social media, nor is it about writing best-selling books, although you can do that if you wish. This will give you more time. So if you want to spend some of that time writing a book, then you can. It also doesn't, I'm not requiring anybody to have to start with a huge following or have spent several years building up an audience, which I know some people have been able to do because they've had the financial resource to kind of look at it long term in that way. But you don't have to do that either. I mean, I saw a post the other day where somebody had said, they've been posting consistently for 2 years before they got their first client from being on LinkedIn. It's like 2 years. You could go broke waiting 2 years for your first client. How do you stay in business whilst you're waiting 2 years? That doesn't make any sense to me. So we don't need to be starting with any followers. You don't need subscribers. You don't need a massive YouTube following. You don't need huge email list of 20,000 people or anything like that. Nor do you need influential partners. I've set up a lot of partnerships over the years. They've been very beneficial to me, but everybody starts with nothing. And what I like about what I'm going to share with you, it doesn't require any of that. Nor do you need to be pumping out content like an amphetamine junkie. And ultimately, it's also not about being manipulative, not about being slimy, not about saying anything that you think somebody wants to hear in order to get the sale. None of that is important. So what you may be wondering as we get into this is whether you can or can't do what I'm going to share with you today. You may be wondering, do you have the money to implement what I'm going to be sharing? Or if you have the time to do this, or ultimately, even if you have the ability to do this. Now, look, they're valid questions. They always are. And they're very common questions. So, they are valid because what you really want to know is, will this time be different? I'm sure you've heard, this is probably not the first web class you've ever attended. Probably not the first time you've read any material on, making your business better in some way. but will you really get the solution you've been looking for all this time? Now, I believe you will. So I've broken this down. I think one of my core skills is to be able to take something which is complex and break it down into simple steps that anyone can use. So look out for those as we go through the presentation. They are there. There are some key elements that I've highlighted. Write them down, draw them, copy them, take a screenshot if necessary, but just capture them so that obviously you can use them. Does that make sense, by the way? That makes sense. Obviously, just shout out to yourself. Nobody's listening. Hell yes, yes. Whatever you want to shout, just acknowledge it in some way or just nod your head. That's fine. All right, so a little bit about me. Yes, I am an international speaker. Not as much these days as I have done in the past, but I still go overseas and do presentations. Been doing it for 2 decades now, or just under 2 decades to be completely fair. And what I like about speaking, one of the great things, especially when you've got a room full of people, and it could be 20 people in the room, it could be, a couple of thousand people in the room. But over that time, I've seen literally tens of thousands of people. Now, what I see is the patterns. I see the patterns that people follow. And ultimately, I see the difference between the people who get to where they want to go and the people who continue to struggle. Does that make sense? So when you see the patterns like that, then it's very obvious that there are specific patterns you want to follow, and there are specific patterns you want to stop doing or stop following. So I've seen those, I know the difference. So what I've also wanted for myself, and then to be able to share with other people, is to continually seeking an edge in what is a rapidly changing world. When I started out, the internet certainly wasn't as sophisticated as it is today. Certainly it's a double-edged sword in some ways. 20 years ago, there was less competition. So, there was less, it was easier to start certain things because it was easier to be unique. It was easier to stand out. Today, of course, pretty much every market is saturated. We're going to talk about that as well. So I'm always looking for an edge. So the upside of the internet is more leverage, more ability to reach anybody in the world. And from my pursuits, one of the things I've been very clear about right from the beginning, and I learned my lesson early on, is seek out the people who can help you the best. Seek out the people who can help you accelerate your progress, because trial and error, trying to do things by yourself, is a very harsh way to learn, and it doesn't guarantee anything. Because if you don't know what you don't know, how easy is it to suddenly become aware of what you don't know? You don't. Usually you have to have a very painful lesson in order to realize you're doing something wrong. And even knowing you're doing something wrong doesn't tell you what you need to do right. Does that make sense? So I've always been mentored and, currently mentored by billionaires and Olympic athletes. I've sought out the people that can make a difference for me. Sometimes I've sought out people without really having any understanding of what it is I'm going to get from them, but I know I can get something from them. So I would encourage you to think in that way as well. Now, this kind of really began with hindsight many, many, many years ago. One of my best friends actually was my best man at my wedding. And when we first met, we're both young and single and such like, and he was starting out on his path in his business. And he and I met because I fitted the profile of his clients at the time. And we became friends. We sat down having coffee one day, and I remember talking to him about the clients he was working with and the kind of revenue he could generate from them. And I said, you know what, if you stopped working with those people and only focused on people who, for him, because he was a financial advisor, I said, for people who are much high net worth, generate more income, run their own businesses, do very well. I said, what difference would it make to you in terms of effort? Or what difference would it make to you in terms of business revenue? And of course, in terms of effort, no difference whatsoever. In terms of revenue, exponential, massively different. And so, we're having coffee and I looked at him and said, so why don't you just work with those people? And it was really interesting because his response was, wow, you're right. But his first immediate emotional response, and the way you vocalize it, he said, well, will they take me seriously? So it was a fear-based response. That makes sense. And it was really interesting. But he went on to do that. And we talked a lot over that time. And he really shaped his business following that premise and did incredibly well. But that's where it all started. And it got me very much since when I went side, you could call it a sidetrack, but when I got into seminars, everything else, seminars are more mass approach. You're reaching multiple people in different segments of one overall big niche. But this is a better approach if you are someone who is working on your own by yourself or wants to see clients on a one-to-one basis. So one coffee, one conversation changed the direction of my thinking. Now, today's agenda, in the small amount of time that we have together, My goal is to make a big impact in the following ways. I want to give you confidence where there was once uncertainty, in the same way that I did for my friend. I want to give you clarity where there was once confusion. There is a lot of confusion. I attended an event a few weeks ago as a delegate. I was invited as a guest. I went along, and what I hear in the room is some of the same questions, the same confusion that I was hearing 10, 15, 20 years ago. So that doesn't change, because human nature doesn't change. Human psychology doesn't change. So I want to give you clarity where there was once confusion. And ultimately, I want to unlock within you the true potential you've got to create a business which serves you and your clients fully. That's a real win-win. That's how you leave an impact in the world. You take care of yourself, you take care of your clients. So if nothing else, I'm here to help you make you more money, so you have more fun, more impact in your business, and ultimately extend that to the rest of your life. Because of course, wherever you go, you're always there. All right, here's what I need from you then. That's what you can expect from me, but what I need from you: implementation. If you listen here today and you do nothing different, what will change tomorrow? Nothing. See, things are going to change in terms of the world, but if you want to make progress, you've got to take what I'm sharing and you've got to do something with you. Is that okay? Do we have an agreement on that? Because if you're not willing to do something different, this is a complete waste of your time. So there's no point even listening, because all you do is just gather information, but nothing will change. You've got to be willing to make a new decision. That's the whole point. There we go. So do something different. So if where you are isn't where you want to be, then you have to do something different. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting the same result. And if the same result is not the result you want, then you're going to keep getting a result you don't want. I think that should be both make sense logically and emotionally. So there is always a gap between where you are now and where you want to be. I want to show you how you close that gap and have fun doing it. So two things in life: there's always theory and the results. Theory by itself does nothing. See, if all it was about was information, everybody in the world would be a billionaire with six-pack abs. It's not about information. There's plenty of information out there. Where you get results from is applying the information in a systematic way. So listen to this in terms of becoming aware of what you don't know, knowing the gaps you got to fill in your understanding, and knowing that that's got to result in action. Like all knowledge must end in action. So thoughts always become things. So think about what I show you today. Ultimately, be able to see yourself doing what I show you. So reflect on it. I'll give you, a little bit of time. You can go back over this. As you know, I'm doing a recording. So see yourself doing what I'm showing you. See yourself in your mind doing what I'm sharing with you. See the kind of end result. That will help enforce it in your nervous system. If it does that, it will help you change your behavior. Because ultimately, that's what this is. This is behavior change. People who get different results change their behavior. If you've been trying to make chocolate cake without putting chocolate in it, you ain't getting chocolate cake. And until you're willing to change, then nothing will change for you. So see yourself doing what I show you. That will help you. Is that okay? Give me a hell yes, high five, absolutely. Whatever you want to say it, whether you want to be high energy, low energy, just nod your head or say, wow, this guy's got too much energy for this time in the morning. That's fine. I don't care as long as you acknowledge it. All right, let's keep going. So on this webinar, I'm going to show you how to reinvent your business so you gain more freedom, more profit, and more impact. I'm going to give you a 3-step roadmap to standing out in a saturated market. Hint, I'm going to show you how to change it so it's not saturated for you. So ultimately, change the rules, change the game. Business has no rules. There are guidelines. There are things that are absolutely essential. But when it comes to the ultimate rules, you get to set them in your favor, always. And I think a lot of people forget that. And I'll show you the right way to package your expertise to work with the clients you love. This is key. So do you think someone who has a consistent flow of the right prospects, the right clients, thinks differently to someone who hasn't? Of course they do. Everything starts with the way you think. Do you think someone who profitably takes a week off each month thinks differently to someone who doesn't? Without a doubt, and builds it in deliberately. And do you think someone who is oversubscribed thinks differently to someone who isn't? Of course. Bottom line, always. Show me someone who's getting a different result. I'll show you somebody who's thinking differently to the masses. So are you willing to think differently? I know I'm reinforcing this. I'm hammering it because it's critical. As I said, I've seen the patterns. This is where it all starts. This is kind of like the path. This is getting you on the right path. Be willing to think differently. So just suppose 3 months from now, you're in a position where you are oversubscribed. You've got more demand than you can supply. Therefore, you can charge the fees you want to charge. You can choose the clients you want to work with so that you work with the people you have the most fun with. In any niche, there's always a subset of people you will connect with more than other people in that niche. So just suppose in 3 months, that's where you are. How does that impact your business? How does that impact your life? How does it make you feel? Like, step into it right now. Imagine you're right there, right now, living and breathing, being oversubscribed. You flipped your business model, you flipped the way you approach it, you're thinking the way I think, and now you are oversubscribed. How does that feel? That's where I want to get to. Now, a couple of house rules before we really kick into this. First of all, no magic wand nonsense. There is no magic wand. There is no get rich quick. There is none of that stuff. You know, in 3 months, if you saw a great personal trainer, you can make a major difference to your body in terms of how it looks, and a major difference to your energy, and a major difference to your health. 3 months is a good chunk of time, but it doesn't happen overnight, and it's consistent, and it's hard work. Same is true here. I can show you how to be oversubscribed within 3 months, but in the beginning, you got to dig that reservoir. There is some work in the beginning. So you're not afraid of challenges. From my point of view, anything worthwhile is worth fighting for, okay? You're open to new insights without getting offended. My goal is to help you win at this, so that if you win, you get to impact. There's a ripple effect for me. You impact people on a better level. We all benefit. The world benefits. So I'm here to help you to win. My job is results. That's all it's about. I want to make sure you get the results that you came here for. And sometimes I will be very brutally honest about that in terms of what needs to change. So I'm not deliberately trying to be offensive, but I am at times blunt, because why do I want to spend time wrapping it up in flowers and poetry when I just tell you what you need to hear? Flip side of this is, if you like the idea of plain success, but you don't ever invest in your success, this is not for you. If you're closed-minded, if you're one of those people that already knows everything, again, this is not for you. As a generalization, that tends to be more related to men than women, who think they know everything. And if you're looking for the next shiny gimmick, the next shiny tactic, the next strategy, oh, Facebook released some new tactic, I can make the money on Facebook. No, tactics do not make long-term success. So forget it. I haven't got it for you. What I've got is things that are truths, things that are fundamentals, things that work. So my challenge, of course, is this. I've worked with thousands of small business owners, micro businesses, and entrepreneurs, big and small. I've spent many more hours thinking about this, researching it for my own benefit to begin with, and kind of uncovering insights, little golden nuggets, and also connecting the dots in my own brain for myself of how to implement it. So the question then for me is, how do I distill my thousands of hours of knowledge, my experience, in a way that you can pick up immediately and use to impact your bottom line? Well, here's how we're going to do this. I turned it into a system. So I've called it the super subscribed system. So 3 key pieces. I suggest you start drawing some boxes on your paper and just fill these in quickly. Obviously, you're going to see them again, but just fill them in. This kind of the hook to hang everything on, as you'll see. So 1, super fans. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Secondly, predictable profit. I'll explain how we do that. And thirdly, optimize your output. Because at the end of the day, if you're not implementing the first 2, you don't get the overall result. So that's kind of the keys to the system. So all of this is really, if you think about what I've done, is I've broken down the strategy into 3 big chunks. So a strategy answers the question, how will you close the gap? How do you go from where you are now to being super subscribed? So there's a gap, always a gap. So we want to close that gap. So what do most people do when they think about, oh, here's where I'd like to be, when they set a goal or something else? Well, for the most part, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, they do nothing. Or they just immediately start writing down a to-do list, which tends to be either a whole bunch of tactics or a whole bunch of things that have no relation to the goal, but they don't know any better. So there's no deliberate mapping of what they're doing. They're just putting something down that they think is going to work. It's more of a hope and pray approach. That never really works long term. It just makes you more frustrated. Because can you have a huge to-do list? And I've seen some amazingly huge to-do lists. I sometimes think people are trying to get into the Guinness Book of World Records with a to-do list. Can you tick everything off it, even if you could? If you could tick it all off and still make 0 progress on your goal, of course you can. Because if there's no connection, there's no real strategy, there's nothing. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and one of the things he does, and I do this on occasion, is kind of go into somebody's business and spend a day a week, usually like 3 weeks in the month, and just kind of act as either whatever they need, whatever the expert in residence is required. And, you know, he had a client come to him saying, oh, can you come and be my chief marketing officer for 6 months? And he's like, no. Why? Because they didn't even have a strategy. So there's no strategy for the business. They needed that first. So of course he could help them put that in place first. And then actually what they really wanted was not to have him in there as their marketing officer, but actually he was there to help them. Once they got the clear strategy, they could then go and recruit a marketing officer. Does that make sense? So you've got to have a strategy. You cannot rely on myths, fairies, or magic, although I've met plenty of people. Here's how you tell somebody's relying on magic. If you ask them where they are now and they say, okay, here's where I am. And if I then say to them, is where you are, where you want to be, and they say no, I say, okay, what's going to change? And they can't tell me. All they can tell me is, and this is when you dig down into it, they have this belief that where they are now isn't a reflection of where they're meant to be. And where they're kind of imagining they're going to be is somehow going to happen. But they got no strategy, no thought process, no kind of, or if they have something, they say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. I go, okay, how does that connect to the goal? And they can't. They can't tell me how it connects. So there's a lot of hope and pray. So they're relying on myths, fairies, and magic. There is no fairies and magic. It doesn't work that way. The cavalry isn't coming to rescue you. They are not on their way. Now, hopefully, listening to me now is going to be what you need. But you've got to understand, you've got to implement this. You've got to implement the right things in order to get that. Now, let's get into this proper. Have you ever experienced any of these? You're selling a low-priced product, a service, or an offering, but it's not enough to hit your goals. So let's say, I don't know what your goal is. Let's say it's 10,000 a month, 50,000 a month, doesn't really matter. But if you're selling something low price, then it doesn't matter how many you sell of them or the amount of effort required. There's only so many hours in the day. You're never going to hit your goals with this. If you've ever experienced that, or you experience attracting broke people, I'm sure you've been through that. That's a very common thing. I know I've been through that. You're attracting clients that don't appreciate you and what you do for them. You're selling to too many different prospects. So too many different types of things that you're trying to focus on. So ultimately, you have no clarity on who you love working with and who you should be selling to. So you don't have much margin because of that. So therefore, you're never building a buffer, you're never building your treasure chest, and you want to be building those things for your business. And so you're working too many hours for too little return. We're going to solve that right now. So where do you start? Well, of course, you start with my system, 3 big pieces. So let's get into this. So you ready to dive in? Hell yes, I'm sure you are. Now, superfans, this is the first piece of this. So you want to be thinking about, see, superfans are the people that really value what you do. So in order to get to that place, you got to change the questions you ask. So start by writing these down. Who values what you do? Who do you love working with? Because ultimately what you do should be fun. It should be joyful. You should enjoy getting up and going to work. You should enjoy being able to work with people. You know, because from my point of view, life's too short for PIA clients. I'm sure you can guess what PIA stands for. If you can't, it just means pain in the ass. So pain in the ass clients, life's too short for them. You don't want any of those. So you want to really define, clarify, and find your superfans. So key number 1, write this down. And this may be contrarian to what most people believe, maybe what you believe, but it is the truth. Your value is much higher to a smaller number of people. You know, there's 7 billion people on the planet. You can't work with all of them. So don't even try, flip it. Who's the smallest audience, the smallest number of people you want to work with that allows you to get where you want to be? So superfans. Now, when I raise this, and based on what I'm saying is you're going to zoom in on one core type of person who is your superfan person, your superfan profile. When I mention this, what are the concerns that come up? Well, the common ones are, well, if I focus on one type of person, don't I miss out on all the others? Well, it depends how you define missing out. If you mean you miss out on pain in the ass clients, then yes, you miss out. Isn't that a good thing? Also, the kind of thing, well, which is the right one? If I'm going to pick one specific type of person, who's the right one? I'm going to show you. Or, and this comes up not as often as the first 2, but it does come up and it's quite interesting. Well, I get bored with it. I like variety. Yeah, I like variety too. And you can find variety in what you do in many, many different ways. And it isn't from trying to have too many different types of people that you're trying to help. So give those up, because if you're not, then if you try to appeal to everyone or even just too many types of people, you'll attract no one. And ultimately, that's just a recipe for being broke. So if you want a recipe to be broke, if you want a recipe for struggling, if you want a recipe for false starts or limited success where you hit a very low ceiling very quickly and never get beyond it, then by all means, carry on worrying about missing out, carry on worrying about who the right one is and jumping around all over the place. Carry on doing that, that's fine. But I want you to get a better result. So let's not do that. So who your superfans are. 1, you got to define them. Obviously, it's 3 key pieces of this. 2, you got to understand them. And 3, you then got to find them. So you got to define them, understand them, and you'll see how important that is in a moment, and then find them. So let me just give you an insight into how you do all of that. So how do you define them? All right, a couple of Venn diagrams. I'm sure you love your Venn diagrams. Start with these. So draw these circles, write the questions down. You won't have an answer for them right now, this second. I know that. But if I can get you on the right path, then of course things can change very rapidly. So who do you most want to work with? Now, this doesn't say who do you believe you can work with, or who do you feel comfortable working with right now? Like my friend, when I said to him, why don't you work with these people? And we defined people who, for him, ended up, people who had investments over 10 million. It's like, who do you most want to work with? So even if that brings up a feeling of uncomfortable at the moment, it doesn't matter. Ignore that for a second. Who do you most want to work with? What is the problem they want to solve? And you may not know that at all right now, but you can certainly put down a guess. Within that, who is the most profitable segment of this group? This third piece, combined obviously with the first two, is where the oversubscribe starts. If you don't include this, it's very difficult to be oversubscribed. And then the fourth piece, what are your strengths? Because we want to match what you do to the problem they have to help them get the result they want. In other words, if you think that you're the bridge from where they are to solve the problem to get the result they want, or think of yourself as the vehicle to close the gap for them, like I showed you before, where you're now desired role, oversubscribed, super subscribed, as I call it. How do you close that gap? So you're that bridge, you're that vehicle. That's what you're providing. So where they all overlap, those are your super fans. Does that make sense? Write that down. Just draw super fans in the middle. You can do all your fancy cross hatching and everything else and make it look pretty later, but just get this down. What's this? Hold on, I've got something flashing at me. Oh, a chat. Okay. I'll come to the chat at the end if that's all right, because otherwise we'll be here for forever. I go off on enough tangents. All right. Secondly, that's defining them. Now you got to understand them. Once you know who they are, now we need to map this out. And this is called an empathy map. I did not invent the empathy map, but it is a very powerful tool. Certainly I can share more with you about it at a later stage. You can go find all sorts of things on empathy maps on the internet. As I say, there's no lack of information in that respect. It's the strategy that I bring to it that's unique. So an empathy map is really basically saying, where are they now? Where do they want to get to? What's their day like? On a day-to-day basis, what do they think? Because obviously that drives how they feel. So therefore, what do they feel? What do they see? What do they see around them? What do they hear from others? What do other people say to them? What do they say? What do they do? And you need to be able to map this out. This takes effort. Most people don't do this. Now, in my business, we rely on a number of ways of ultimately driving leads and finding leads. One of them is advertising. If you don't understand your super fans and you don't have an empathy map, the only thing that would happen if you ever threw money at advertising is you would lose your money. Simple as that. Always. Because you've got to understand them to make your advertising work. So even if you're not going to run paid ads, and you don't have to, not for this model, you still need to understand them, because as you'll see later. So secondly, you got to understand them. You need to put together an empathy map. I can help you with that. Thirdly, what's happened to my slides? Here we go. You got to find them. Now, once you have an empathy map, you can then translate that into an avatar. I'm sure you've heard this before. You've heard the idea of an ideal client avatar. The phrase gets thrown around all over the place, but I don't necessarily believe people understand what it is or how you arrive at it. In other words, you don't go from, oh, who's my ideal client to drawing an avatar. It doesn't work that way. You have to go via those first two steps. Does that make sense? So in other words, you got to define them first, then you got to do the empathy map, then you can do the avatar. You cannot do an avatar without doing an empathy map. And you can't do an empathy map without going through the 4 circles. So in other words, an avatar just gives you characteristics. So that could be age, that could be gender, that could be their role in a company, that could be the size of the company. It can also be interests. So whether you think business to business, business to consumer, actually it's all human to human. So it can also be interests as well. What are you doing by defining those and then giving that avatar a name? So I put an example here, I called it Exhausted Eric. I'm giving it a name. It then allows you to map that to whatever platform you're on. Does that make sense? So if you're on LinkedIn, you need to be able to find your superfan on LinkedIn. You do that by translating the empathy map into these characteristics. Now you know who to look for, based on the options that LinkedIn gives you. Same on Twitter, same on Facebook, same on YouTube. So that's the whole point of an avatar. Does that make sense? So its only purpose is to help you map across to the platforms. If I'm looking for these people on YouTube, I know the options YouTube gives me. I start to map these across. They're different to the options Facebook gives me. And they're very different, again, to Twitter and LinkedIn. Okay, so you need those three things in place. So question then, if you did this and nothing else, do you think that clarifying precisely who your superfans are would make a difference to your business? Obviously, the answer is yes, but I need you to just try that on. If you just clarify who your superfans are, would it make, not would it make, what kind of difference would it make? Obviously, tremendous. Now, harder question though. So you think these people deserve you? In other words, therefore, do you have a duty to find them, to do this properly and actually find them and move in with them? Yes is the simple answer. Serve them, serves you, serves the greater good. So that's the first part. Second part, predictable profit. Let's speed up a little bit. Where are we time-wise? Yeah. Let's speed up a little bit. I want to try and keep this to the hour. Now, do you want to know how many clients you'll get 30, 60, and 90 days from now? Predictability. I'm sure you do. Do you want to charge more? In other words, increase your fees, but work with fewer clients? And do you want to be able to do what you want with your time? So the answer to all of that is yes. And on top of that, to have minimal stress, this is what the predictable profit model is for. So, oh, there we go. Have you ever experienced any of these then? So you feel like you can't raise your prices without losing clients. It's a common fear. You feel that you're forced to cater to price shoppers. So you're talking to people who don't really understand what you do because you're too generic. And therefore, what they think you're offering is they think is similar to what someone else is offering. So therefore, they're just looking for the cheapest price. And if you don't have enough people to talk to who know who you are and know what you can do for them. So if you've experienced any of that, again, let's solve that. So, and where that culminates is you then don't know what message, because of course you've got to put out a message into the marketplace, onto the platform, which will pull in your superfan. So again, let's change all of that. And then you get caught in this place of you're always hunting, you're always chasing new business. So your predictable profit model, three key pieces to this. One, you need an offer which converts. I'll explain what that is in a moment. Secondly, you need your core outreach message. And thirdly, you need to be able to have a profitable conversation in some way. Now, let's start with the offer which converts. So this is the keys to the castle. Like, for example, if you rang, let's take advertising agencies as an example. There's a lot of those around at the moment. But obviously, like anything, not the 80-20 rule, it's more like the 99-1% rule. There's 1% of those agencies that are doing extraordinarily well. There's 99% that are kind of either getting by or struggling. If you spoke to the 1% and said, what's your offer which converts, chances are they wouldn't tell you, because it literally is the keys to the castle. It's finding that which is important. So you need an offer which converts. So this is the heart of all high 6- and 7-figure businesses. So if this is the heart of a high 6-figure business or a high 7-figure business, what do you think you want to be doing? You want to be modeling them. You want to have your offer which converts. So this allows you, once you have it, to stop selling all the other products or all the other services or all the other things you think you need to create that are keeping you from gaining the real momentum. And this makes your time way more valuable and way more appreciated by your clients, because they know exactly what you can do for them. You know what you can do for them, and it's very clear, and it also makes you unique, so you stand out. So it gives you the freedom to do only the things you're passionate about. Now, let me go back a step. What's the hardest part of selling coaching or selling consulting? It's intangible. So because it's intangible, that makes it hard to picture. If somebody can't picture it in their head, then it's very hard for them to make a decision about it. And it's very hard if they haven't got anything in their head, any picture, any thought, to have a feeling about it. Does that make sense? Because thoughts drive feelings. So therefore, we want to change that. So on the flip of that, think of like something which, like Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas or your birthday or some sort of time of the year where you get gifts, get presents, how do you feel opening a Christmas present? You feel excited. It's something to open. It's tangible. It's in a box. You get to hold it in your hand. So there's that wow feeling. You want your offer to replicate that feeling. So what's the purpose of an offer then? It's so you can package your solution. And I mean solution deliberately. We'll come to that in a second. It then makes what was intangible become tangible, so your superfan can picture it in their mind, so that therefore it's compelling. There's a feeling behind it that drives their desire, so it becomes desirable to them. Does that make sense? So it's literally a way of saying, okay, with this offer, new life, new results, new destination. Or without it, carry on with your old life, old results, old destination. So when you get this right, it's so in tune with what your superfan needs, they will find it hard to resist because it matches exactly where they're at. It's like it empathizes with them and shows them a path to how they get to where they want to be. It's so good for you. You can raise your fees and be more in demand. And therefore, it's unique to you and your business. Nobody else has it. So who can they only get it from? You. And also, what I tie in with the offer is it's got to leverage your unique value. One of the little circles I drew before is, what are your strengths? What are your talents? There will be, like, you can have skills that other people have, without a doubt. Like, you might say, well, yes, if you ever see me speak live, I've been called a great speaker. Am I the only great speaker in the world? No, of course not. So I have a skill set for speaking, no doubt about it. But it's being able to bring something to that which is unique to me and which adds value to an audience that's listening, which is something no one else can copy easily. Does that make sense? That's a bit like your superpower. Nobody can copy it easily. So we want to wrap all that up and package it into your offer. So crafting your superfan offer then. So again, look at it in terms of your superfan. Where are they now? Where they want to get to? What's the result they want? So in order to get to that result, what's their big problem? So your offer nails all of these pieces, and this is how you arrive at your offer. So what's the big problem they're facing that they want to get away from? Obviously, that's the pain. What is it they want? The result, and not just the result in terms of, like, for example, I'm sharing with you a result could mean being oversubscribed, super subscribed, more demand than you can supply, which is a great place to be, of course, and where you want to be. But underneath that as well, there's an emotional need that goes with it. Does that make sense? So we want to address all of that. What do they want? Then you got to look at it as what's the roadmap to close the gap. So what information do you need to give them? And how do you explain that? How do you organize that? Because if you give them too much detail, you'll confuse them. So you've got to keep it at a level where they understand it and it works in their head. They go, yep, I can do that. I can see myself doing that. And then how will you help them implement it? So what are the elements you bring that enable somebody to implement this roadmap so they get the result? Because if they don't implement it, they're not getting the result, obviously. So those are how the elements, the core elements that you need to put in place. That's like, these are what we mix together in the unique way for you. So obviously, I can't tell you right now what exactly these are for you because I haven't spoken to you. I don't know you. I haven't got an insight into your strengths and what you're doing. But once I do, then it's like, okay, let's mix these up. So there's an element of creativity here that gives us this great offer, this superfan offer. So key two with this, you do not want an offer that everyone wants, ever. We don't want something that everyone wants. You want an offer that only a few specific people want. Does that make sense? Like, let's put it on another example. There's an event that somebody I know very well is running in the new year. Again, it's aimed at agency owners, but it's an offer that's only open to agency owners that have done at least $1 million in ad spend. Does that make sense? So that's a very easy illustration of kind of what is it that only a few people will want. So that not only makes it what those people want, it actually tells other people you can't have this as well. So you want and don't want an offer that everyone wants. You want an offer that only a few specific people want. Obviously, those few specific people are your super fans. So you need that. Does that make sense? So does it make sense then to create an offer which increases your demand? Yeah, absolutely it does. Because that means you can charge more and work with fewer clients, so you're free of your time. That gives you more time off, which means you get to think more about your business. You get to think more about anything else as well. So you can always constantly improve it with less effort from you. And it gives you minimal stress. But what it also gives you is, you can predict how many clients you'll have next month. Or if you want to increase that a little bit, you can scale it up as well. So second part of this, that's an offer which converts. Obviously, I'm giving some insights into that. Second part is we need your core outreach message. What do I mean by that? So this is your client magnet. In other words, what message will pull in your super fan? So you can be brilliant at what you do, but if your core message is off, as in it doesn't hit exactly what they're looking for because you haven't yet done any kind of empathy map, or it just comes across as samey, like if you go on LinkedIn, how many LinkedIn trainers are there? And if you look at all these different LinkedIn trainers, other than their profile picture, what's different about them? Very little. And even if I read their profile, it doesn't really tell me much about what it is they do in a unique way. So if you're all samey, then you're invisible. So if you can't stand out for the right reasons, then you will just be completely invisible. Does that make sense? So have you been sold the inbound fantasy? I see too much of this at the moment, and I guess it's in my nature to sort of have an opinion about it and also share my beliefs about it. So this idea that if you just keep posting, pumping out content, somehow your ideal clients will find you. Yeah, really? I'm not saying you won't, but to me, they're a bonus. As in, if you know exactly who they are, and you're obviously specifically reaching out to those people to connect with them, let's use LinkedIn as a platform for now, and you're reaching out to connect with them, and you're pumping out content, fine. A lot of content I see doesn't really resonate with people on any level from I want to do business with you. So just pumping it out and hoping they'll find you, again, that's a hope and spray approach. It doesn't work. It doesn't work consistently. And if you're pumping out content and hoping, well, in 2 years' time, I'll get one client, again, you're not going to be in business in 2 years' client. You can't pay the bills getting one client every 2 years or waiting somehow that some magic's going to kick in and build some momentum for you. Doesn't work. No, they won't. So what do you do differently? And here's what's really interesting, because I said I started out by researching. When I wanted to change my business, when I wasn't getting the results I wanted, I started by going out and looking at people who were getting the result I wanted. And said, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Because that's really all it is, cause and effect. So key 3, write this down. The top 1% of coaches and consultants generate all their leads from their superfans, their ideal clients, from one evergreen piece of content. One. Not multiple pieces. Oh, I've got to write a post every day. It's got to be this, it's got to be the other. It's like, no. I mean, you can do that if you want, but it seems to me that why would you want to do that when it's not necessary and it's not guaranteed? One core evergreen post. Of course, it's important what this piece is, because it's got to be generated around a core message. So that means then you can stop posting like a headless chicken, or feeling that you've got to post multiple times a day, or whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever it is, or creating videos on a daily basis or 20 videos a day. It's like, no, you don't need any of that, because that's not actually, if success leaves clues, then the big clue is that's the wrong way. Less is more in this respect. And it should be built around one core message. So you only need one core outreach message, again, write this down, for all of your lead generation. Does that make sense so far? Might seem counterintuitive, but actually the 1% are counterintuitive. That's why they're the 1%. So how do you reach them then? So we want a core outreach message, specially crafted, which then we leverage through targeted outreach. So we are proactively doing something. So what I've put here is that could be through paid ads. Not saying you start there, but could be through paid ads. Could be through online networking. And there's a couple of different ways of doing that. I'm just using the term generically. Could be through email, targeted email. Could be to an existing list. But there has to be some sort of targeted outreach campaign. It's a campaign in certain ways. That then drives people to your one piece of evergreen content, which can be an article, because not all things work for all people. Like, not everybody should be on video. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful, I don't necessarily think everybody should see my face on video. I don't want to hurt people's eyes. But I'm just saying it in terms of what matches your strengths, or what do you feel comfortable with. Video, everyone said, oh, everyone should be doing video. I don't believe that at all. And actually, it's not necessary, because I know other people who are incredibly successful who love writing articles, and they stick to what they love. And it works just as well. So that could be an article, could be a video, could be a web class like this, where it's one piece of evergreen content. And then what that does then is invite them to get your help if they want it. So again, it's really low pressure, but it works, because if you follow these steps properly, you end up having more demand than you've got supply. That's the point. So what impacts your message? What should that message be? How do you arrive at it? Now, again, I cannot tell you right now exactly what your message should be, because I don't know enough. We need to obviously do the first piece, superfan, and profile those. But here's the things that are going to have an impact on it. You don't create your message in a vacuum. So what messages have your superfans already been exposed to? What have they seen already? Because there's no point repeating what they've seen, because then, of course, you're invisible, because you're just a samey again. Who have they seen it from? So when I say that, it could be someone who you consider direct competition, or indirect, as in they service the same market, but they're not doing exactly what you do, but it could still be a solution for them. How much does your superfan know about their problem? Like, are they aware they have a problem? Do they know what that problem is? Do they know if any solution exists? How much does your superfan know about you? Do they know you even exist yet? Do they know you're the best solution for them? All of that impacts the message you put together. Does that make sense? So you've got to take all that into consideration to craft that message. So once you've got it, and it's not science. So it's not, oh, we do this like in a laboratory, we mix this with this, and we got, boom, the perfect message. No, that's not necessarily true. We come up with some brilliant messages, and then of course we have to validate them. We put them out in the marketplace. So your core outreach message starts with research. Most people are not willing to do it. You add in creativity. This is where obviously part of my strength is these two areas. And then we put it out in the marketplace to validate it. And we find out how well it works. And then we can tweak it, we can optimize it, we can improve it. So it's a learning loop. That's the key thing. And I think this learning loop of where you know who you want to approach, you know who you want to work with, you then develop a message, you then develop your offer, and then you put it in front of them and you see how well it works. And what that does is it gives you a loop where the more you work with these people, the more you understand them. So therefore, the more you refine your message and refine your offer until you've got it completely dialed in and it's giving you exactly what you want. Does that make sense? Now, this loop means that you don't have absolute certainty day one. You can't, because you haven't tested it. And I think that gets in the way for a lot of people. They feel that they have to know exactly all the steps and everything in advance before they take the first step. No. You take the first step, then you get feedback. You take the second step, you get more feedback, and you refine. It's always a learning loop. So your core client profile, your superfan profile, that just keeps getting updated. You keep adding to it as you learn more about them. Does that make sense? Always. So don't think, oh, I need to define this in advance. And I see people who I've spoken to and they're like, well, I can't get started because I don't know exactly who my superfan is. You know, and I look at what they've got and I go, you've got enough to get started. And they hadn't realized that because somebody had been telling them, well, you can't start until you know exactly what TV programs they watch at what time and what they have for dinner and what their favorite vegetable is. No, you cannot know all of that in a vacuum. As great as the internet is for research, you cannot know all of that, but you can know enough to get you in the right direction. And then it improves, you refine as you move forward. Okay, so know all the pieces and obviously just recognize it is a learning loop, keep going. So question for you then, when presented with a better and easier way, do you keep doing what you've been doing or do you change your approach? And the smart answer, of course, is you change your approach. Follow this. So third part of this, we need an offer which converts. We talked about that. You need your core outreach message, how important that is now. The third part is you need a profitable conversation. This is where you talk to people. So this is the sales part. So all your little videos have popped up, guys. How nice to see you all. I'll wave at you. Hey, right. Have you experienced any of these? All right, let's get into this. So you see sales as a scary means to an end instead of an opportunity to serve. You lack confidence, so you're not coming across as the best option for these people. Your sales cycle is too long because, let me just shift all these out. Because you have no structure. And then what tends to happen is you think it's easier to sell at a lower price, so you undercut your own fees. And you'll hear this a lot. People say, I'm interested, but, and you never hear from them again. So if you've experienced that, let's change it. So the harsh truth, of course, is in business, nothing begins until something is sold. That's a given. But what that doesn't mean is it doesn't mean hammering people over the head until they surrender their credit card. It doesn't mean being manipulative or slimy or saying anything to get the sale. What it does mean is putting your need for the, it doesn't mean putting your need for the sale above the right decision for the client. One of the keys of being super subscribed is you only work with the people who are 100% fit, because you don't need to work with anybody else. But if you work with someone who's 100% fit, that means you know you can help them get the result they're looking for. And you can do whatever's required to get that result. When someone's not a perfect fit, are they likely to get the result they're looking for with you? No. Who's that good for? Nobody. It doesn't grow your business. It doesn't serve them. And you end up back in this cycle of chasing clients again. So this is key. Let's keep going. Sells itself? No, it doesn't. Here's why so many people have an issue with selling. This is what I've noticed. What's right for people will often be outside their comfort zone. That's very common. So when I talk to somebody, then you get a sense between someone who isn't right for you, in which case I'll tell them, I'll say, look, I'm not the right person for you. Here's what I believe you need to do first. Or someone who you know this is right for them, but they're letting fear get in the way. Again, people are human. Fear gets in the way. That means what you're offering them is outside their comfort zone, which is, most of the time it's going to be, because if it wasn't, they'd already be at the result and they wouldn't be looking for your help. But the key problem with this is, from an evolutionary point of view, we are wired to stay inside our comfort zone. In other words, we're wired for survival. So most people are wired to fight to stay inside their comfort zone. But if they stay inside, will they reach the goal? No. So what's your role in this situation? Your role isn't selling. Your role is to get them out of their comfort zone, to get beyond their fears. So most of the selling, though, in terms of what you're doing when you finally talk to somebody, is already done. If they followed this process, core outreach, targeted outreach, one evergreen content, and then you're inviting them and saying, yes, I want to talk to you, most of the selling bit is already done. Otherwise, they wouldn't be wanting to talk to you. Does that make sense? So at this point, it's actually really easy. It's not selling at all. All you're doing is helping them make a decision, the right decision for them, not for you. So if the right decision for them is to work with you, that's 100% match. So decisions dictate destiny. Indecision is pain. My goal when I talk to somebody, and I often say, in fact, I've made it, the more I've said this, the better it works. I'll say right at the beginning of the conversation, we're going to talk. At the end, you can say yes, you can say no, you cannot say maybe. Actually, I would write that down. It's a little tactic, but it works very well. Tell them right at the front when you talk to somebody, by the time we finish doing this, you can say yes, you can say no, that's okay, but you cannot say maybe. Is that okay? You get them to agree with it straight up, because indecision is pain. People will spend forever going back and forth and head back, and they'll drive themselves crazy. Get them off the fence. So show how your offer, which you crafted, destroys their problem, moves them to the result. Act as their advisor, be their advisor, their advocate, their cheerleader, not a salesperson in the traditional sense or how most people perceive it. And from my point of view, it's not really selling, it's coaching. We're moving them beyond their fears if they're right, or I'm getting to a point very quickly where I know they're not the right person for me, I'm not right for them, and we can tell them. Okay, so what does this do to your confidence? Well, because you control how many conversations you have each month, you're not relying on any one single conversation to pay the bills. Does that make sense? So if you're not going, oh, I need this person to be a client, like, so you're kind of desperate in that way, what does that, because that undermines your confidence. You flip that, your confidence just grows. There's a scarcity of you, obviously, because you're super subscribed. There's only one of you, there's more demand than you can serve or choose to serve. You decide how many hours you want to work a week. So that in itself helps them make a decision. It helps them get off the fence. And it takes the pressure off you, which means your confidence increases. You're relaxed. You're there to help, to serve in the full meaning of the word. So key 5, this is critical to making this approach work. Write this down. You must be willing to put their needs ahead of your own. In other words, I put that here and I mentioned it before. Never enroll someone who is not 100% a perfect fit. In other words, who you know you can get results for. Like if I'm not sure when I'm talking to somebody based on where I think their head is at, then I'll clarify that. I'll dig deeper. I'll ask certain questions. And again, I'll go through this with you when we talk one-to-one. I'll go through that with them to clarify. And if at any point, like if I'm not sure, I'll say, look, I don't think I'm right for you. I'll tell them, because the last thing I want to do is work with someone where it doesn't work out properly. Does that mean I might be wrong on occasion? I'm sure I am wrong on occasion. I'm sure I'm never right 100% of the time. But it does mean that 99.999% of the time, I'm working with the right people. And therefore, I'm putting them into the diary to start wherever it is, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, in some cases, a couple of months ahead. So question, if you follow this approach, can you see how your super fans would be more eager to buy from you? Because they are, and you'll experience this. So final piece of this is the optimized output. We got this. Now we know what we want in terms of superfans. We know how we flip your business model so you've got predictable profit. But now it's like, okay, you got to implement it. So what's your most important resource? Time, of course. So how you waste your time determines the quality of life, determines the quality of your business. All distractions are equal. So we want to make sure that when you're focused on this, you are focused on this, because focus is the currency of success. So then the question then is, how do you stay focused? So how do you take consistent action so that you move the needle on this? So you got to manage your output. So there's a lot more to this, but for the sake of this presentation and not to overwhelm you with too much, I want to focus on just 2 things very, very briefly. Manage your energy, discipline your routines. Managing your energy in terms of making sure that you are, from a physical point of view, in good emotional shape and good physical shape. And then discipline your routines. So consistency is the only way to create results. So you've got to have systemized routines that you follow, that you can follow without thinking about. So in other words, they're habits. So if you don't have to think about them, you just follow them, then they just deliver the result. So if you go to the gym once, for example, even if you did all the right things, will you instantly be in shape for the rest of your life? Of course not. You got to go consistently, you got to keep going. Otherwise it can obviously, you lose it. So there are 3 daily habits to being oversubscribed in terms of implementing everything I've shared with you in the big chunk 1 and big chunk 2, which I will share with you when we talk. So bottom line, change your habits, explode your results. Now, this is critical. Does that make sense? You got to have the right habits. In other words, you've got all the ingredients for the cake, but you don't mix it and you don't mix them consistently, you don't get the cake every day. So let's do a quick recap. So what we've covered so far, we talked about defining your superfans, understanding them, and finding them. This is the foundation of your whole business for being oversubscribed, or as I call it, super subscribed. Then secondly, we looked at predictable profit. Change the model of your business. A couple of areas to this. We need to know your offer. We need to know your core message. And then we need to know how you have a conversation with people that moves them to being a client if they're the right fit. Thirdly, we talked about optimizing your output in the sense of develop the key habits that will explode your results that allow you to implement what I've shared with you. So question then, has our time on this webinar together been well spent? Trust the answer is yes, because I've given you a number of aha moments. So do you now feel more confident? One of my goals, do you now feel more confident about working with fewer clients and charging what you're really worth? Now, I'm not saying that you'll do it straight away starting tomorrow, but the concept of it, the idea of it, like following the roadmap that I've given you to get there, do you feel more confident about it? I trust the answer is yes. And could you use one or two of the things I've shown you today, regardless of whether you're using it in your business or somewhere else? Look, could you just use it? Could you go away and just start putting together an empty map? Yes, you could. Could you go away and start drawing the circles and giving it some thought as to who your superfans might be? Yes, you could. Could you go away and start thinking about what that core message might be? Yes, you could. So can you see yourself using what I've showed you to improve your business? Like, can you picture yourself in your mind doing this? So action creates results, because it's no good just getting inspired in the moment. You want to create lasting change, because it's easy to be inspired in the moment. So I've given you the roadmap. Now I want to guide you through it so you get the results, the sales, the impact that you need. So let me ask you a question then. I'll go through this very quickly. What do you think your business would look like if you actually did this? If you actually put in the research, did the work, actually implemented the roadmap so that you became oversubscribed, super subscribed? Would you like to find out? And would you like to accelerate your progress? So I've set aside some time to personally review your business, look at your current offer, look at your current sales process, or your plans for selling a future offer to change the way you approach business. And I want to do all that for free. Now, you might be thinking, why? And I understand that. It's like, what's the catch? Well, I know that when I do this, a percentage of people will ask me to help them create and implement this into their business, to actually bring to the table the strategy, the research, the implementation, the creativity, and the iterative aspect, and the kind of validating it to get this right. I know that every single time that's what happens. So rather than trying to convince you how great it is to work with me, what I'd rather do is demonstrate that I can help you by actually helping you. I know that sounds like a radical concept. It's like, well, I'm just going to help you straight up front. And then obviously you'll then decide whether I'm right. And of course, I'll find out if you're right for me as well. So first thing that happens when we talk is I'll listen to you. I want to understand the challenges you're facing. I want to know what your sales goals are. I want to know what you want to accomplish and by when. I also want to know how you want to be known. Like, what would be the perfect kind of positioning in the marketplace for you? Then we'll do what I call my close the gap analysis. Where are you now? Where do you want to get to in terms of being super subscribed? What are the missing pieces currently? Like, you might have a great message. You might even have a good idea of who your superfans are, but you're not actually approaching them properly. So I'll ask some very specific questions. They may seem unusual. That's not uncommon, but it will highlight what's missing for you. It's like, you know, going in, I want to empathize with where you're at. I want to kind of do a diagnosis. A bit like going to see any kind of professional. It's like, okay, we need to know where you're at first. We need to know what's going on. Then I'll help you bring some ideas in terms of who you should be looking at as your superfans, how you should be approaching your business model, and where you should be looking for a core message. Then I'll explain what you need to do to leverage this, and we'll lay that all out in a way that is easy for you to implement, in the sense of it's not overwhelming, like you've got to do 6,000 things in week one. But what I'll do is map it out over 90 days. So we'll draw it out and we'll say, okay, over a 90-day period, here's what you do first, here's what you do second, and so on, all the way through that. Now, after you get the map, one or two things will happen. One, you love it. You love everything that I put down for you. You see the potential for your business. You absolutely make a commitment to yourself that you want to be super subscribed, and you decide to go away and use that and build it all by yourself. Fine, I'm great. I'm pleased I've helped you. I'm pleased I've got you on the right path and that I helped you gain some clarity in order to make it work. Secondly, you love it. And then you ask for my help to help implement this into your business. We then I'll ask a couple more questions. We make sure we're a good fit for each other. I want to be sure 100% I can get you the result. And then, of course, if that's the path you want to go down and we're both happy, this is then how that works. Big chunk, it's a 90-day mentored by me program. We will work together to get this right. Now, this is not a sales pitch in disguise. There is no pressure on you because that's not my model. That's not my approach, because I don't want to work with everybody. I only want to work with the right people, the super fans, as you know. So there is a catch. I can't help everyone. I know that. So in order for me to do this, even to begin with, even for us to talk, you got to meet it's fairly strict, but reasonable in my opinion. First of all, you got to have a legitimate service. So none of this get rich quick kind of stuff, no porn related stuff. I got no judgment about it if that's what you do, but I don't want to be helping you with it. You've already got to have some momentum in your business. Now, what I mean by that is, you've at least had some clients. I don't care how consistent that is, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are kind of stuck a little bit and they're a bit lost and things are up and down. I can help you. I know that. So, and even if we don't end up working together through the whole 90 days, I know I can get you on the right path. So you got to be willing to work hard. You got to be willing to do your bit. That's the other key to this, because there's no point me talking to you and you going, well, yeah, maybe I want that, maybe I don't. That doesn't help. And you got to want more clients, you got to want more sales. You got to want to be super subscribed. You got to want to be one of the 1%, not part of the 99%. And you got to genuinely add value to your clients, something you believe in. And that we might highlight that when we talk, that you suddenly realize actually you need to tweak it to really nail it as something that you totally know you can deliver, totally believe in. And that's fine. Now, if that sounds interesting, here's what to do next. I'm going to ask for a real person deposit of £97. Do not worry, I do not want your £97. The deposit is refundable under every circumstance known to humankind and beyond this universe. You can have it back when we talk. I'm only using it as a filter to keep the time wasters at bay. I want people who are genuinely serious about becoming super subscribed. Once you leave your refundable deposit, you then select an appointment from my online diary so that we're not playing tag. We're not jumping around trying to find a convenient time when we're both available. So we book it in and then answer a few simple questions, which helps me prepare for our session together. And when I get that through, there's a couple of other questions I'll send them through as well. Then we'll talk. So remember, after we talk, one of these three things will happen. First possibility is you love the ideas, you decide to do everything by yourself. Cool, in which case I'm thrilled you're happy. I'll wish you the best of luck. Obviously, I'll refund your deposit. Second possibility is you love the ideas, you want me to help you build it into your business. That's cool. If that's the case, we'll schedule how we're going to work together, when we're going to work together, when we can start, and we'll get started. It says straight away there, put that in kind of brackets. It isn't straight away up for me is very different to what it might be for you. It could be a month away, for example, in terms of how I'm building things in over the next 6 months. The third scenario, which has never happened, is you tell me the session wasn't helpful, that I completely wasted your time. Now, if that does happen, as I say, it never has, then I will refund your deposit, obviously, and I'll give you another £97 on the spot just for wasting your time. So you can at least say that talking to me was a good investment. In the end, you actually got a return on it. Okay, so clearly you got nothing to lose. We're just going to map this out. I want to help you get to that result of being super subscribed. I want to change your business model, put you in the top 1%. So follow this, just basically copy and paste this link. So strategicrebel.com/talk, that'll take you through to my diary. So it'll sort of redirect you to my diary, pick a slot, put your £97 deposit in, and obviously we're booked in and we'll talk. So a couple of questions that sometimes come up. What's the focus of the session? Well, the focus of the session is everything we've been talking about today. We want to cover those primary areas, define who your superfans are, want to look at what your core message should be in terms of the content, the best way you want to deliver that content, and also what your offer should include. So you might be thinking, well, is this right for my business? I can't ethically answer that right now because I don't know you well enough. So I do know it's not right for everyone. I've repeated this before. Hence why we're doing this. Obviously, put down the deposit. And then obviously we get together. You decide, I decide. If we're both happy and we want to move forward, we move forward. That's cool. How can you best prepare? Well, just send me anything you got. I don't care. Whatever you've been doing. If you just want to tell me the story of what's been going on so far, what sort of results you've had so far, erratic, predictable, or what kind of clients you've been. So just send me everything. You know, who your clients are currently, who you've been working with. Are they the people you want as clients? Oftentimes, I find people end up working with certain type of client because it pays the bills. And I get that. We've all been there. But actually, they'd rather be working with, you know, high-end executives who are the exhausted Erics, and they want to be able to work with people who are making $500,000 a year as high-end execs, and they want to be working with them, and that's fine as well. You know, I can move you into that. So who you'd like as clients, what you want to accomplish, and some idea of your current sales process, how you talk to people, what happens before you talk to people, what happens after you talk to people, anything like that you've already got, and how you currently find clients. Like, what do you do? What are you doing consistently? What are you doing erratically? Whether it's advertising, whether it's networking, whatever it is, just tell me. How soon will you hear from you? Well, once you booked it in, you'll get automated emails, obviously confirming it, and then you will hear from me. So bottom line, if where you are isn't where you want to be, you now have two choices. Make a decision. You can either do nothing, that's fine, but what's going to change? Nothing. It will not change by magic. There are no fairies at the bottom of the garden, and I know Christmas is going to be approaching, but Father Christmas is not going to do anything different for you. Or book a session today, completely risk-free, book yourself in, let's talk. Where will you be 6 months from now? Well, I can tell you it will be completely dependent on the decisions that you make now, because there's a ripple effect. There is always a lag time between decision and result. Failure doesn't happen overnight. Success doesn't happen overnight. But where you'll be 6 months, start deciding what you're going to do differently now. So go ahead, click the link, book something in. Let's talk. Let's talk about how we find and define your superfans. Let's talk about how you want to be organized in your business model so you got predictable profits. Let's talk about your core message and how you're going to reach those people and how you're going to get them to want to talk to you. And then obviously let's talk about the kind of habits you're going to want to change so that you actually start being a high performer in terms of implementing this and seeing a result from it within the next 90 days. All right, so do that. Let's talk. That's been kind of cool. I've really enjoyed this. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And I hopefully will talk to you at some point in the future. If not, I hope you've got plenty from this, which you're going to go away and use. That's the important thing. If you just listen and do nothing, nothing will change, and I will find you and slap you. So other than that, this has been fun, and I'm sure our paths will cross, or I certainly hope they will at some point in the future. All right, take it easy. Now, let me come out of this. Let me just check the chat. What did it say? Yeah, yes, thanks, Joey. That's cool. All right, so we are just past the hour. I have surpassed myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back. I've managed to keep this almost to the hour, which was my goal. So I'm going to sign off, and no worries, Joey, thanks you. And I'm just going to sign off. I got a couple of other things I want to do today. It's half term, so we're going to take the kids somewhere. But go back through this. As I said, it's streaming on YouTube as a live, so it'll record on YouTube anyway. You can go back and visit it at some point. It's currently public, so it should be easy to find. I will at some point be changing that to unlisted so that I can send it to specific people. But for now, I'll leave it as public. All right, take it easy. Have a great rest of your day.